It said the stream is live.
Okay, awesome. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. I'm really excited about my guest today. Tonight on the show, I welcome with me Rahjeena Drabarni. She's the EQ Polymath Alchemist. She's a lifelong occultist, Llewellyn Worldwide publisher, author, Romani, hereditary witch, and a deep initiator into the realms of psychic development, emotional intelligence, trauma recovery, and ancient transformative arts. Rahjeena is a rare presence in the esoteric world, a true polymath whose skills span occultism, alternative healing modalities, psychology, energy work, music, writing, and the arts. Since the 80s, she's been offering professional witchcraft services, trauma-informed coaching, intuitive spiritual counseling, and advanced teachings rooted in decades of initiation and lived experience. She specializes in narcissistic abuse recovery and trauma alchemy, addictions and emotional intelligence development, psychic awakening and occult training, Romani hereditary witchcraft wisdom, and holistic mind, body, and spirit transformation. And with all that said, I'd like to give her, and you can find her website at rahjeena.wixsite.com. And with all that said, I'd like to give her a big warm welcome to the show for the first time. Rahjeena, thanks so much for coming on. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me on your show. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Like, good. I'm a little, like I said, it was a little bit weird. Like before this, like I felt like something put me to sleep, and I just kind of woke up right on time, like right when we were about to go live. So I guess, yeah. But so I'm thinking, where should we start? But how did you get into all this? Like, what started your path down all this, like the witchcraft and all that stuff? Like.
That came at a very early age, and it started when I was 3. It started with psychic experiences, and then when I was 7, my first experience with the dead. So that is what triggered me wanting to learn about the occult.
Yeah, and then did you start reading books on witchcraft and stuff like that when you were young? And did you have it in your family?
Well, that's the interesting part, because I was adopted at 2 weeks old into a 100% Sicilian family, and my father's mother was strega. So she was a Sicilian woman that people came to from all over the place for blessings, for readings, for, to find out what the sex of the baby was going to be, for, marriage blessings and this type of thing. So when she found out, what I had been experiencing, she became my first teacher. So.
And what was it that you were experiencing? Can you tell us a little, like what was?
Sure. When I was 3, and I can remember this every time I go back there, it's like I was there again. When I was 3, I was sitting on the floor playing with my little wooden people toys. And my mother, I could see my mother in my eye shot. She was washing dishes and watching me at the same time. And I recall a screen, like a movie screen, like the kind of screens they had in school when they would show slideshows and stuff like that. It came down in front of me, and it seemed to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And in the screen, I saw my father and 2 of my uncles in a field. And I couldn't hear what they were saying. I could just see it in vivid color. And my father had a red can in his hand. And I saw him pull out a pocket knife, and he punched holes in the plastic part on the top of the can, and then took the lid off and grabbed a stick and picked up a snake off the ground and put it in. And they were like in a field. They were in a field where there was vegetables and stuff. And so he put the snake in this red can and put the plastic lid over. And when I saw this, and then it went away. And then when I saw this, I was like, mommy, mommy, you know, daddy has a snake. Daddy has a snake. And she was like, your imagination, you know, go play, right? So later that evening, my father came home with a snake in a red Folgers coffee can.
Wow.
And yeah, and when that happened, you know, my mother was telling everybody in the family, and soon enough it got back to my grandmother. So yeah.
Yeah. And what's your true heritage? Like, what you said, you were adopted. Like, where are you?
I'm half Romani. Yeah.
Wow.
On my mother's
So,
side.
would that be like gypsy? Is that another term for it, or is that just, or are they a subsect of the Romani culture?
Well, you know, gypsy, the word gypsy is basically a pejorative name for the
I'm
Romani
sorry.
people, but
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. No, if you don't know, you don't know. You know, it's okay. A lot of people don't know, so it's quite okay. But you know, the Romani people came from northern India, starting in the 5th century and approximately around the 11th century to the 11th century. And they started coming over to the Balkans first, and then they spread all across Europe. And then like around the 19th century, they started coming to America. So my family are Aliji, and they are from Macedonia. So they settled in Macedonia. And my grandfather was the one that immigrated here in the 1940s, and we lost a few of his brothers, and his sister were lost in the World War II.
Yeah, that was also where Alexander was from. But like, I think I talked to you about this. Like, there's like there's like the Macedonia and Greece, I think, and then there's the Macedonia and the Balkans, right?
Well,
Well, I love
it's
your
the
cup. That's
same.
cool.
Oh, thank you. You can see it here. I'll show you. It's the same.
Yeah,
It's the same. Macedonia. There's only one Macedonia. It used to be Yugoslavia when I was born. And
yeah.
then they had that whole thing happen, you know, so they are now Macedonia. And that is exactly where my family came from on that side.
Oh, I love that. That's so interesting. That's so interesting to me. You know, that is really cool. That is, yeah. And what is the Romani witchcraft tradition? Like, what is it in encompass?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about it because it is a very private thing. Between each tribe of family is a little bit different, and some tribes have lost that completely, and they disown any type of magical tradition. So it's basically, this type of magic is a folk magic. And you know, a lot of times it's syncretized, so wherever they end up landing, certain tribes or families, there's usually a very strong religious area where they are, and some of them have had to assimilate for, you know, for reasons of being secure and not persecuted, and to, you know, maybe be able to get services from the government or from the church, you know. So a lot of these things were buried and they were hidden. And a lot of the families let them go completely because they were in so much fear. And some of them kept them and kept them secretive. So when I say folk magic, you know, there's a lot of similarities to other folk magics, whereas, you know, herbalism and candle magic and this type of stuff is concerned. but it's also very, Romani beliefs are very black and white. So they're very dualistic. There's evil spirits, there's good spirits, and this kind of thing. And there's also, evil people and good people. They like to make that distinction as well. And, there's a whole big thing about when somebody dies, and, there's a lot of superstition. And, I was lucky that I got to meet my mother's side of the family and learn a lot from them before the majority of them passed. And I only have an uncle that's alive now. But the good news is that, while I learned a lot about them, I still, have my own beliefs. I did not bring on board everything because I'm not really a superstitious person. I'm more of a, if I experienced it and I know it's for real, then it's for real. But, some things I can't get on board with. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I got you. Okay, and then I was going to transition a little bit into the emotional alchemy, or the polymath alchemist archetype. Now you call yourself the EQ Polymath Alchemist. What does that actually mean to be a polymath in the occult world?
It doesn't mean anything in the occult world, really. A polymath is somebody that knows many different disciplines and many different things, in life, that has pretty much comprehensive knowledge in various realms, in various and multiple subjects. So I never knew that that's what I was. But as life went on and I kept learning different things and becoming pretty versed in them, I realized, there was actually a point in my life where I was like, I have all these separate things that I'm doing. How am I going to put this all together? I was really confused for a while about, there was too much, which one am I going to go for as a business? Which one am I going to focus on? But I focused on all of them, and that's basically what a polymath is.
And you're also an alchemist. Like, did you want to talk about that? Because, like,
Sure.
I read the book The Alchemist before, where they're talking about turning lead into gold or something. But it's really like the transformation of consciousness, right? The transmutation of the soul, right?
What you're talking about is the historical alchemy. And yes, that is exactly the lead into gold, and the philosopher's stone is mostly the historical. But what I practice is more of the Carl Jung theory of which is a lot of psychological things. It's basically, without getting really deep into it, unless you wanted to, it is a psychological steps. He has 4 steps in his program of growth, that you start off as everything is destroyed inside of you because you're facing your shadow, and then you build from there, and you become a better version of yourself. There's also the Rosicrucian type of transformation, which is also very cool because they do incorporate the spiritual and the occult aspect. So, and I've studied both of those, and I really think that some people go through the system of transformation and alchemy without even knowing it sometimes. And it starts out by, being in a situation in life that destroys a lot of your ego, because somebody is harming you, or, you're left in perilous situations. And, you become resilient and you become strong through those things. And a lot of times that's how you grow.
I love that. That's interesting. So, would you say emotional intelligence is a form of psychic intelligence?
No, it's two different things. Emotional intelligence is knowing your emotions, what motivates your emotions, being able to name your emotions as you're feeling them. A lot, and then also other people's, that comes later. But a lot of people don't know what they're feeling and they start reacting just because they're having a feeling, and they will emotionally react. They'll act out. They'll be emotionally unregulated. And I know a lot of people that go through their whole life like that, and they don't really think there's anything to heal or anything to change. And they don't realize why their relationships fail. And these can be relationships even with their boss, not necessarily personal relationships, but emotional intelligence will help you in any form of relationship. And we all learn and grow through relationships or not. And that's a choice, and the good news is that even toxic people can learn emotional intelligence. It's something that can be studied. And, there are people that come onto this planet that have a natural ability for emotional intelligence. But, you meet a lot of people who have been abused, and that's my background. A lot of people who have had addiction in their history, and that's also my background. And, to work through all of that, and become somebody that had CPT, PTSD complex, okay, which is what I have been, diagnosed with twice over many years ago, and then worked through that to the point where now, somebody can do something or say something to me and I don't react anymore. And I can also tell you that, okay, if I'm feeling anger, I can, and in the moment, go, I'm feeling anger because this person did this to me and I don't deserve it. And then I can go, okay, what's underneath that feeling of anger? I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling really sad that this person did this to me. Why did this person that I trusted do this to me? And then underneath that is grief. I'm going to grieve the loss of what I thought was a real friend that was having my back, and they did this to me. And then it comes to the point where I can let this go now. This is a reflection of them and not me. This is their choice to be emotionally unregulated and to be emotionally unstable by doing that to me. That's not me. That's them, and I give it back to them. So there's whole processes of learning it, and it makes life a lot better. It really
Yeah,
does.
that's cool. That is interesting. And then I wanted to ask you about emotional alchemy and narcissistic abuse recovery because you deal with that. Like, what is okay, let's talk about how does narcissistic abuse happen? And like, can we define it? Because like, I know people who've been involved in narcissistic relationships, and it seems to be something that's coming up more and more in the collective nowadays, So could you tell us a little bit about like what it is, and like, and why people are suffering it, and what the narcissist is and what they do and what they feed on and all that stuff?
That's a whole lot to unpack, but I can start. And then if you have more questions, we can go from there. Um, First of all, I don't diagnose anyone with narcissism. And the next thing that you need to know, nobody can unless it's a, licensed psychologist. And the bad part about that is that narcissists don't usually take themselves to a therapist to get diagnosed. Their main thing is hiding behind a mask and pretending to be someone that they aren't. So Dr. Romani is somebody that I refer to anybody who wants to know more about narcissism and about the different types of narcissism. And she's also on YouTube and has wonderful videos. So she's somebody that I refer to. She's an expert in this. I do know a lot about it because the family that I was raised in was very narcissistic, and my mother presented as a malignant narcissist, even though I'm not diagnosing. I can't do that, but you are allowed, and everyone else is allowed, to look at behavioral patterns of people and call it out that they are behaving like a narcissist. Okay. So that's pretty much the key. If somebody is showing behavioral patterns, and let's talk about that a little bit. There's a problem with narcissism being, exploding all over the internet, where people will have encounters with others and they'll just be like, oh, you're a narcissist. Well, that's a slippery slope right there, and if that person hasn't shown those behavioral patterns, that's, not something you should be saying. But again, narcissism is on a spectrum. Okay. So there's, this end of the spectrum where there's, some narcissistic traits that we all have. We all have to have some ego in this world, because if we do not, we will be a doormat, basically, for other people to step on. So there has to be a little bit of ego there. Then we move up the spectrum. Let's say we're at mid-spectrum now. And these people have more narcissistic traits. They may not be out there trying to destroy other people's lives, but they're usually pretty selfish and self-centered. And they're more thinking about their own needs and what they want. And they still wear a mask. But they can, and I've seen this, they can become self-aware at this point still. It might take a lot, like they might be losing their family, or, somebody wants to divorce them, or they've lost a job, or something wakes them up though, and they can start becoming self-aware. And at that point, they can start working on themselves if they want to. It's always about free will. It's always about choice. Okay. And that going to say, if you're at this midpoint and you keep choosing bad behaviors and toxic behaviors, I've also seen that these narcissists will move up the spectrum, and there becomes a point of no return. There comes a point when you can forget about self-awareness. They will never be self-aware because they are so stuck in their toxic behaviors of pointing the finger at somebody else, projecting upon them, creating lies in their own head about, and narratives about what they need to say about whoever they're targeting, so that they can feel okay about hating that person. And usually the hate at this point is all about being jealous and envious, and in a secret competition with these people that they target, and the target doesn't even really know. And I've seen such ludicrous behavior where I've been targeted for the color of my eyes. It's ridiculous. Like, a narcissist will hate you for something very, very small, and they will blow it up into a big thing, and they'll create a whole narrative about it that doesn't even exist. And they'll try to, give you a smear campaign at this point, where they're, trying to triangulate you between other people and talk about, how horrible you are so that no one will like you and try to destroy you, your reputation. I mean, it's a whole campaign. And I've seen people like this continue to do that to their target their entire lives until they're old and still doing it. And it's almost like they're possessed with something that they cannot ever escape. And this thing will continue to make them live in their own created hell. And yeah, so
wow. That's deep. That's yeah. I was just gonna say. I'll transition to some. I was to transition to. By the way, where did you get your mug? I love that mug. That's so cool. Is that some of your merch?
No. This mug. There was other ones too with the sun and the world, and I've got like a set of these from where was that world? It was like a I don't know. It was like a store that sold stuff from around the world, and I don't.
Do you throw tarot too? Do you throw tarot?
Oh yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah, I have a bunch of different tarot readers and psychics that come on my show. Like that, I have people that come on and do live readings and stuff like that. But I didn't know if that was your thing, so I was like, I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I didn't, I didn't know to go there. You know what I mean? Like, and some people are turned off by that. They're like, I don't want to do live readings. You know what I mean? So I kind of get a feel for the person first. You know what I mean? I didn't know if it would be appropriate to even ask you. So like, yeah, you know what I mean?
That's one of my things, readings. But I do a variety of readings too. I throw bones. I read.
You throw bones?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just real interested in it. You know, I wanted to tell you what I wanted to. I was so excited about this because I've always been interested in the craft since I was like young. Because like there was this woman I used to listen to Art Bell when I was a kid. You know, like I'm 45 right now, and Art Bell used to be on in the 90s and early 2000s. I don't know if you remember him. He was like the first paranormal talk radio person, you know, and he used to have this woman. She was like a good witch. She would come on. She was a strega. You know, she was an Italian strega, which her name was Evelyn Paglini, and she kind of was somewhat Christian, but she was also strega and she was pagan. Like she was raised both, you know, and she was said that she practiced natural magic, and that she said that magic, the power of magic, actually came from God. Would you agree with that?
That's a big one to unpack too, and I'm glad you asked that because I want to unpack that. Everybody thinks of God in a different way, and some people are even atheist. When I think of God, I do not think of God as some man up in the sky with a beard, in a heaven or anything like that. I believe that everything is energy, and the universal energy, which some people call God, is everywhere, in everything, and in us. Okay. As far as a good witch or a bad witch, that doesn't exist, because everybody, every single person should not be labeled by what they associate with, okay, or by what they call themselves, a word. You know, if you believe in God, okay, if you're a Christian, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are automatically with a good moral compass. We know from history that there has been many people that are Christians, and even pastors, which have been found out to be very bad people. Okay. And just because somebody identifies as a witch or an occultist doesn't necessarily mean they're bad or good either. And, if a witch tells you that, oh, I'm a Christian witch, so now, that means, what that does, honestly, is, I'm sure you remember in the 80s and 90s. Well, you're still young. I'm much older. I'm 60 years old now.
That's
So,
insane. There's no way, because you look like you're 40. You look like you're my age. I was gonna, dude. You look like you're my age. You've really kept yourself well. It's good.
thank you. But what it is I have a genetic disorder, which is called Ehlers-Danlos, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. And this genetic disorder is a collagen and connective tissue disorder. And so it makes my collagen thick and makes me more prone. And you can see my hands as well. They're very young looking as well. It is because my skin is thick, and so it's prone to not wrinkle as quickly as other people my age. So that's why I look like this. But getting back to what I was saying about witches. Okay, so if any witch, I was talking about the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s. It's even worse now. Because I'm sure, you've been all over YouTube yourself, and there are many people who are tarot readers on here who, they talk about witches that are doing black magic on people, and, they're talking about Jesus and God, but they're still doing tarot readings. We've got Christian witches who are teaching baneful magic, how to destroy people, how to break up their relationships, how to hex, curse, whatever, and still in the same breath, but I'm a Christian. No, that does not make for a good or bad person. That does not make for a good witch. Okay. What does is your moral compass. And in any box that you put someone in, whether it's a Christian box or a witchcraft box or an occultist box or whatever box, we can put, what's being put in boxes now. A whole lot of, people, they're put in boxes and they're all said to be one thing or another. And that is not the truth. Okay. A witch is like everybody else, like a Christian. Depending on situations, depending on circumstances, whatever happens in your life depends on what kind of decision or choice you're going to make and how to handle it. Correct?
Yeah.
So even a Christian, if they're, they find out the pastor is sleeping with the entire, congregation of women, young women, and the wife finds out, she has a choice to make. And she's not going to be very Christian-like in making that choice. She's going to probably get a divorce, and, everything's going to be found out. And, it's the same thing. I mean, Christians can make the choice to do bad things to other people, and we know they have. And witches can make the choice to do good or bad things for people, depending on the situation or the circumstance. Hey, if somebody, did something to abuse somebody that I loved, and it was a horrible abuse that was against the law, and I'm not going to say the words because I don't want you to be banned, but you can imagine what they are.
Yeah.
And I decide at that point that I am going to do some kind of a curse so that when this person goes into the courthouse, that they're found guilty and they get the book thrown at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
that's actually a good moral compass, that I like. I mean, that's on your part, you know what I mean? That's what I mean. That's so I guess what defines a dark witch would be just someone who's, I guess, like absolutely satanic and doing like really dark things, like, or what, or no?
No, because the satanic thing, witches don't even believe in Satan. That's something that's completely made up by the church. And, as far as that goes, this satanic thing, let me even be clear about that. You've got the Church of Satan, the LaVeyan Church of Satan.
Antoine LaVey, yeah.
Okay, so I'm right near San Francisco. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I grew up knowing that over there. If you did any research on the history of the Church of Satan, you would know that it's more like an affront to
Philosophy.
Christianity, but it is a philosophy, and a lot of psychology is involved, and it has nothing to do with a literal Satan. So, a lot of people get misinformation and they spread it.
Well, no, can I tell you what's going on in our community right now? So, like, in like in the spiritual UFO consciousness, whatever community you want to call it, like, there's a big rumor going around that there's Luciferians in control of the world, and they're doing black magic sacrifices, and that's like, that's a big thing you'll hear everyone say, you know what I mean? And everybody like kind of like is like, they think that, like it's like a thing,
People need to find a scapegoat for why things in the world aren't going right. It is just like, who can we blame? Who are the bad people that are doing this to us? I'm telling you that all the research that I've done, and another thing that I do, because it's another one of my polymath hats, is that me and my husband are very involved in the music industry and people in the music industry. And him and I both have worked with a lot of people that are high level people. And I'm not going to drop names, but, in the studio with these people, vocal coaching these people, he's doing sound for these people. These are people that a lot of your people would say, oh, they are part of the elite and they are demonically possessed. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know how my people are. Yeah, I know, and they do. It's weird because the conspiracy crowd does go off on that tangent. I know they do. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because me being the skeptic, like when I look at it, I'm like, wait, what? We got to find the hardcore facts, right? I mean, like before we crucify someone.
And let's talk about it. If you look at these people's lives before they became famous, okay, most all of them were struggling and came from poor families. They weren't handed this. They worked for what they attained in life. But it seems that once they obtained something, there's a whole bunch of people ready to throw them under the bus and create really dangerous situations for these people based on conspiracy theories and lies. And I really think that these people are also jealous because their lives aren't what they wanted their lives to be, and they couldn't attain their dreams. And then looking at these other people that have, they're bitter. They're bitter. They need somebody to blame.
Okay, I got you there, but what about like people like Jeffrey Epstein? He's not in the music industry, but he turned out to be a complete monster. And then Puff Daddy's a good example because he turned out to be like a real monster, right?
And R. Kelly
turned out to be a real monster. Yeah, he wanted to piss on. I'm not even going to say it, but like, you know what I mean? We know.
I know the whole story. And let me tell you, there are absolutely people that are actors and in the music community that are foul. But again, we must look at everybody individually and by association in some cases, and do not throw the whole of everybody into the same box. That is not the way to go in the world. That is not the way to go. You cannot fear everyone. You cannot hate on everyone. You cannot make up stories about everyone and scapegoat everyone. You know, people should be judged on an individual basis. Use your discernment. Keep an open mind before you cast judgment. And the judgment should be based on behavioral patterns. You know, nobody is perfect. Everybody has a bad day. And occasionally people will act out. But if it's a consistent thing that you see over a period of time and the same type of behaviors, then you know something is wrong with that individual.
Yeah. Spiritual Ascension put this comment up. I'll put the whole comment up because it's in two parts. She
Sure.
says, nice, the Wiccan law, ye must in perfect love and perfect trust, 8 words, the Wiccan read, fulfill, and harm ye none, do what ye will. It sends forth comes back to thee, so ever mind the rule of, and then she goes on, so ever mind the rule of 3, follow this with the mind and heart, merrily we meet and merrily we part. Is that a Wiccan creed, or is it, or?
That is based on a Wiccan law that they have. I am not a Wiccan. I am not. I was taught by somebody at one point that was, but and I did some magic in ritual using the same kind of calling in the quarters and working with the elementals and drawing a circle and this kind of stuff. I used to do magic like that. So, but I do not ascribe to a Wiccan read, which is what it's called, because I feel like everybody again has free will and choice, and if you know yourself and you know what motivates you, and you are not emotionally stunted, because there are many, many paths in the occult and in witchcraft. And not every one of them has a program or a path in it, a gnosis of you learning to better yourself, heal yourself, become more emotionally intelligent. Some paths just think, oh, hey, I can pray to the Bible or read the Psalms, and that must make me a good person. It doesn't. And if anybody tells you that it does, or they try to virtue signal by saying, I'm a Christian, or I'm this or that, even though I'm, teaching people all this baneful magic, please use your critical thinking, do some research on your own, and then decide if somebody is good or bad, or white or black. There is no white or black magic. It's determined by the practitioner and the circumstance or the situation in their lives of what they're going to do with what they know.
I love that. That's so interesting. Yeah. And can you is there anything like do you still practice magic now, would you say? Like do you still
Absolutely, I do. Oh yeah.
well, is there anything like we could do everybody's always looking for like abundance like in the audience, like is there anything like we could do like a spell like for like abundance or anything like that you can think of? Is there anything easy people
Oh, I
can
can
do
think of, oh, well, easy. Well, I could think of a lot of things to do. Most times, I can say do some folk magic, and that's easy. But at the same time, let me just say this quickly, and then, if your audience doesn't understand, please research. That's what I say. research. But here's what you can do as an easy something. Before I go into that, I'll tell you that what works best for me is working with the planets and, maybe the sun, maybe Jupiter, maybe the hour, maybe Mercury, the day of Mercury in the hour of the sun. I mean, I work with a lot of planetary energies, Olympian spirits, Olympic spirits.
That's cool.
And high magic and, making sigils and stuff like that. Okay. I've seen results. But I will tell you now, going back to the folk magic, that I've had results doing that too. So here's what you would do. You would grab a candle, either a green candle or a gold candle. You would have to learn how to oil it, consecrate it. Okay. You want to carve into it what you want. There's certain ways of doing that. But you always want to bring everything back to you, towards you, not away from you, towards you. So whether you're consecrating with oil, whether you're writing something on there and it's for you and not for someone else, towards you. So that would be counterclockwise towards you. Okay, once you do that, you can breathe on it, you can spit on it, you can do something that connects it to you, whatever. And, you might want to roll it in some herbs that are specifically for money. There's all kinds of things. And then you would want to burn this. And while you're burning it, you want to create the emotion inside of you. I work with chakras as well because, this is something that folds over from India and Hinduism and Vedic, philosophies into the Romanis. So I use chakras, and I will literally create the feeling, the emotion, and the color inside of myself through meditation. And, then I will bring it out of me through my right hand, which is the hand that sends energy out. And the left is the one that takes energy in. And I will put that into the candle. I will send it into the candle. And, I'll do it again in the proper timing of the planetary energy that I want to use. And I will make sure I'm doing that in the proper timing. And I've had some really interesting stuff happen. Like, I can give you an example. My husband is really, really busy guy. So he forgets a lot of times to let me see mail. Like, he'll come home and he will just put the mail somewhere. He's better now, but this was back in the day. I guess, I don't know, maybe we were together 3 years at that time, and we're now 13 years. So he was bad about that back then. And one day I was, working with clients, and I was having them come over. And I was really involved, and I didn't pay attention to anything. And then I was going through some stuff in the house, and I found a letter, and it was from my auto insurance, and they were saying they were cutting me off. They were cutting both of us off because we didn't pay. And I found out that they had sent a letter, a month ago, and I should have seen that letter. He should have remembered that letter, and we didn't. We overlooked it. And so now I was being told that if it was not paid by 5 p.m. at the end of the day, that it would be cut off. And I was like, oh no, hell no. So I did this spell that I'm telling you about now. And by the end of the day, I swear, and my husband can verify this, I had exactly enough from the clients I had that day to pay the bill. And
That's insane.
it was over $500.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy shit. And you just, that's amazing. Like that you're able to do that, you know? Like that's like, wow. Like that's why I've always been interested in like how, you know, how we, I mean, so would you only use that for that kind of circumstance, or can you use it all the time? Like, do you have to be discretionary when you use it? Does it have to be for emergency situations, or can you use it to make your life better all the time?
That's a good question. I don't, especially with the folk magic. The folk magic I use more for clients and uh, for things that are like needing to be quick, like what, you know, the bill. But to keep things going good in your life financially, or in my life at least, I have more of a tendency to use ceremonial magic or grimoire magic, because that seems to make things last over a period of time, and just works faster and better and consistently, and you know. But the folk magic, people don't realize that to be consistent with that, um, and this is what I had to do over a period of time before I even offered that service to clients. You know, over 10 years, I was taking notes consistently, meticulous notes, you know, the time of the day, the planetary hour, the planet of the day, who did I use, you know, what spirit did I call on? Did I evoke? Did I invoke? Did I, you know, what was the weather like? What was my mood like? You know, I like took meticulous notes and went back, you know, and saw, did this work? How long did it take to work? Did it not work? What do I need to tweak? What do I need to change? And I did this for, like I said, over a decade before I got to the point where I could say that this was a consistent spell. This worked consistently. This is something that I can offer to people because I know it works, you know. And you got a lot of
Yeah.
people today that have, you know, opened up shop. I mean, it's so easy to go online and say, I'm a, you know, I'm a magical practitioner, and there's like no history or how they did it or what they've done, and they're offering this to people for money, you know. And it's like, it's not a good thing. It's just not a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to get back to something that you mentioned, and that was the grimoires. Like, where do these
Sure.
come from? Like I've heard so much about these. You hear about them in like in myth and folklore, but you also hear about them in witchcraft, and you hear about them even in like Harry Potter and stuff like that. Like, you know, like or you know, in movies and stuff like that. So like, you know, and I'm sure like in the movie in the show Charmed, everybody used to watch the show Charmed with Alyssa Milano and stuff like that. You know, I mean, that was kind of mainstream, but it was still a good show. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
you hear stuff like this. You'll hear like the grimoires, and everybody. I've always wondered, like, well, where do these grimoires come from? They have to be ancient, right? Or like, what do we know?
They come from centuries and centuries and centuries ago. And you know, there's the Greek, there's, you know, grimoires, there's so many different grimoires, and people have translated them. And you know, in our modern time, they've translated them so that we can now study them, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of them are not complete, and they are, you know, a spell here, a spell there, and they don't really um, correspond to modern day. But some people have taken the old spells and formulated them to fit in the modern day. And that's what I've done with a lot of the things I've read. There's the Picatrix, there's the, PGM, there's many, many different grimoires that are pretty heavy.
You mentioned Greek. I'm half Greek. Well, my mom's Greek and Italian, and my dad's
That's what you
Lebanese. I
said.
think that's what yeah. So like,
Yeah.
does some magic go back to the Middle East and the Mediterranean and Greece and stuff like that? And like,
absolutely, the PGM. And here's the other thing. You mentioned you're Lebanese.
Yeah, my dad was Lebanese. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% American, but that's my ethnic background. Yeah,
exactly. I'm American too. So, interestingly enough, there is a lot of magical tradition in the Eastern practices. And that's why, a lot of people like Crowley in the 19th century and I can think of many other authors, they took things from the Eastern tradition, meditation, reincarnation, chakras, whatever. And they incorporated that into their magical systems. And still to this day, many people use those. There are purists, elitists in the ancient grimoire groups that really resent having any Eastern philosophy or practices combined into Western grimoires, so to each their own. I say, if it works for you, then it works for you. If it helps you to become a better human being, then it helps you become a better human being. A lot of people are very confused and misinformed about ceremonial magic too. They think that, that is something that's evil, and it's because it was associated with Crowley, and the whole thing is, again, do your research. No, it isn't. The whole thing about meeting your holy guardian angel is, the whole program is to better yourself and to meet your higher self, and to become the best version of yourself. That's always what it's been, and using magical means to do so. So there's just so much misinformation out there, and people freaked out and using it for fear mongering and to throw other people under the bus so they're not looked at as being bad, and that's a shame to me. That is a shame.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Let me go through some. Let's see if I just have more questions here for you. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Let me see here. Yeah. My thing won't. Okay. From an occult perspective, have you ever had any UFO phenomena, entities, interdimensional forces, or anything like that you've ever seen?
I have twice seen what I believed was an unidentified flying object. And both times that I saw it, it was so strange because it moved, it stopped, it just stayed there. I saw it and it went zoop and it was gone in midair. And both times it made me feel really weird inside. I can't even describe the feeling. It just felt like this is something I shouldn't have seen, but I saw it. It was, I can't even explain the weirdness. Do I believe that our religions were actually misinformation from ancients that thought they saw a chariot in the sky when it was a UFO, and we were visited by people from, yeah, you know where I'm going with this. Do I
Yeah.
think that Von Däniken is on the spot with his ancient alien theory? Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I do
and
believe that.
Zachariah Sitchin too. You know, I mean, people put down Zachariah Sitchin, but like he was a pioneer in my mind. You know, like you know, I don't think there would be all this talk about the Anunnaki if it wasn't for Zachariah Sitchin. You know, well, there was Von Däniken too. He talked about but like what Von Däniken did was he said that many different cultures had experiences with like UFOs and then there's people like
Yes.
now like Paul Wallace. I've had Paul Wallace on my show. He's amazing. Like he talks about all the people, all the cultures throughout time that have had like alien abduction experiences and these weird UFO experiences where women in South Africa get abducted off the beach. They get taken to this underwater base and they're used for hybridization programs, but they get treated really well. And then they come back and then they try to tell their families what happened. And their families are just blown away. But this stuff really happens,
I believe it. I believe that, it's weird how religions too, if you look at the different holy books of various religions, and they all seem to, I mean, even Egyptian god and goddesses, the whole story, it's the same story with a different names. Okay. And there's that. And then there's, like you were saying, all over the world, different cultures that have been found petroglyphs in various caves all over the world where it's showing what looks like a UFO with a little man inside,
Yeah.
And where did that come from? There's just too much evidence that is pointing towards that.
Yeah. Now, this is a really good question because since you're someone who can manipulate consciousness or you can manipulate energies, right? Like with magic, right? Like, what do you think about CE5? Like now, CE5 is when a group of people get together and they all focus their intent and they try to draw in UFOs, right? Like, I'm sure you've heard of this, right? Like, do you have an opinion on it? Because it sounded like you weren't too keen on seeing the UFO that you saw. So it's like, maybe I don't think you would be too keen on like a CE5 circle, or would you? Or would you?
I really, my feeling about that is I don't want to mess around with these people. They are way advanced than us. And there is so many different types of aliens. Okay. They're not all good. They're not all benevolent. Just like people aren't all benevolent.
Yeah.
And still, again, you can't throw them all in one box. So if there's this type of alien, you can't say they're all bad. If there's that type of alien, you can't say they're all good, because they are just as individual as we are humans individual. So, but I really, that is like something that I don't want to use my time or my energy for.
Yeah. Yeah. I that makes sense. Yeah. And then, let me see that other questions I have. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about shadow work, alchemy, and transformation. How do you define shadow integration with without the trendy social media interpretations or shadow work, I guess you would say.
Well, you would have to study Jung to know about the actual shadow work. A lot of people think that that's the be all end all because that became a trendy thing as well. Really, if you want to do, if you've had trauma in your life, if you have obvious things emotionally that need healing, my suggestion is to go and get therapy from somebody who is qualified, first and foremost. After that, or even during that, you can explore shadow work. Shadow work is only bringing to light things within you that you have shoved down and that you may not even know is there, but is coming out in your behaviors. And that's basically what shadow work is. You know, if you want to know more about it, I do suggest and recommend that you study Jung on shadow work.
That's cool.
But
And then sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Sorry. It's just a big topic to get into.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just have a couple more questions. That's it. And like dipping our toes into the paranormal. Do you feel the veil between worlds is thinning? And if so, why now? Do you think we were in a special time right now in humanity?
That's hard for me to judge or speculate on, but I will speculate for this question. I think that humanity is in a very perilous time right now. I think that if we are being watched, the people watching are not happy with us here and not happy with what's happening on our earth, on our planet. Do I think that could cause them to want to come here and do something about it? It's a possibility. If that's what's causing, as you say, a thinning, like they could come back here. I at this point, with all the things that I have experienced in this life, which I thought, you know, at one point, how could that be? But I experienced it, so it is. I really think that it's a possibility that they can come back here. Yeah.
I got a question. Like, what about like the paranormal too? Like about ghosts, cryptids, demons, shadow people? Do you feel like people are seeing more of these now as well?
I don't know that they're seeing more of those. They've always been here. You know, shadow people are the spirits of people that have passed that are stuck on the other side. They cannot go to the light. They cannot be reincarnated yet. A lot of bad people turn into shadow people because they did not learn while they were on the earth. And when they have a second chance of learning on the other side, it is very, very difficult. And a lot of these spirits will turn even darker over on the other side. And that is what a shadow person is.
That's interesting.
I don't know if people are seeing more of them now. I can only speak for myself. I'm not seeing more of them now. I've seen, you know, I've worked with the dead and have seen many things from the other side my entire life, and it isn't any more now than it was then.
And I got to ask you, this is one of the last questions I have for you.
No problem.
What do you feel? Are you familiar with the soul trap theory?
Are you talking about the theory of you see the light because the light is drawing you into another reincarnation and it's a loop of hell? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And that we're like forced and that they loose feed off us here and that like we're like, you know, some like, you know, like a cattle farm for like, you know, like interdimensional entities that like want to like, you know, like archons, you know. It's a really Gnostic kind of view almost. It's somewhat Gnostic in a way, but like it's also kind of like yeah, I mean, but it's not, you know where I'm going with that. It's kind of like, you know, it's, you know, they say not to go to the light because they say the light's a trick, you know, and that it's like, you know, and this to me, this is like, I want to know, I know we can never know, right? I mean, the only way we'll ever know is if we pass away. And it's weird because death is such a mystery. You know what I mean? And it's like, we could draw on near death experience case studies and all this stuff. But like, I think at the end of the day, we're still going to be scratching our head asking questions, but like, what do you feel from someone? I mean, if you cross people over to the other side into the light and stuff like that, and like, do you have experience?
I've been with people when they've died, starting in the 1980s when we had the AIDS epidemic start off, and families of these poor men who abandoned them, basically. One of my teachers used to go to the General Hospital in San Francisco to be with these men as their family because their families abandoned them. And so I used to go with her, and I started going, and I was there when many people have passed, many men. But I've had my own experiences with the dead. I've had visitations from the dead. Like I said, starting when I was 7, and it was my uncle who visited me. And that was also something that was verified that I would have had no way of knowing. I could tell you that story real quick if you want to hear it.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay. So when I was 7, I went to bed, and I woke up, and my Uncle Frank was standing at the end of my bed. And he looked just like me or you. He looked solid. He was, wearing clothes. And he said to me, do me a favor. Tell your Aunt Mamie and Frankie, who was his son, that I love them. And I giggled, and I said, why don't you tell him, Uncle Frank? Why do you want me to tell him? And he said, just be a good girl and tell them I said that. And I was like, okay, and he said, I love you. Good night. And I said, good night. And he turned around and he walked out of my bedroom, and he looked, like I said, he looked solid. The next morning I was having breakfast at the table, and I asked my mother, why was Uncle Frank here last night? And she goes, your Uncle Frank wasn't here. What are you talking about? I said, he was in my room, and he told me to tell Aunt Mamie and Frankie that he loves them. And she said, you are your imagination, just go back to eating. Okay. Later that day, I'm playing in the hallway, and I hear my mother on the phone in the kitchen, and I peeked out of the doorway and I looked, and she was crying, and she was like, oh my God. And oh no, when she got off the phone, it was verified that he had died the night before. What he usually done, he had a routine. Every night he would sit in his easy chair, and he would watch the news until he fell asleep. And then my Aunt Mamie would go out there, wake him up, and say, come on, Frank, come to bed. Well, when she went to go wake him up, he was dead.
Oh, gosh.
The autopsy said that he had an aneurysm in his aorta, which exploded. But he had come and visited me right when he died to tell me to give that message to them.
Wow. Well, that is so. And how did your family react to that?
Again, they were like, this girl's got something strange with her, something is unexplainable, but those are the things that got me involved into the occult, was psychic things that happened to me.
It's fascinating. It really is. To me, that's wow. That's amazing. And then my last question for you to kind of wrap everything up: where do you see occultism and psychic development and these fields, the paranormal and stuff, evolving or going towards in the next decade?
Oh, that's hard to say. I think that there was a time, maybe 10 years ago. I don't know how long ago, maybe longer, where witchcraft and the occult got very popular, to mainstream, and this is probably from TikTok and Instagram, and there's started being a lot of younger people in the younger generations that were wanting to explore this, and they started calling themselves witches, and it kind of became a fad, I think. But now, with the climate we're in right now, politically, and I'm not even going to get into that, but the connection between the political and the Christianity, the evangelical Christianity, and a lot of Christianity in general, we're going back into a phase of satanic panic, which is actually more dangerous this time. And a lot of people in the community are getting attacked. They are Christians invading their stores. There are Christians invading their ceremonies. If they have a permit to have the ceremony outside, they are invading pagan and witchcraft groups, and where they're teaching, and they are really going out of their way to harass people in the witchcraft community, especially if it's somebody that is well known. And this is happening massively. And it's, if you go online and you look on, if you put in Google Christians attacking pagan stores or whatever, you'll find video after video of them doing this. And so I really think that I don't know where it's going, but I do feel like this is a very dangerous time. And I want to ask the witches out there, or the practitioners that claim to be Christian based, to stop putting themselves in a different category as being good or white, because they are throwing every other practitioner and every other person in the occult under the bus. They're throwing us under the bus, and it makes us the evil ones, And as I said before, there is no black or white. This is a moral compass of an individual, of every individual. So where it's going in the next 10 years, I hope that this bowls over, and the fear mongering behind it goes away, and that people start researching and getting the truth and stop spreading misinformation. That's what I hope, because if it doesn't, we might go back into an era where where we are harmed, because it's been that way throughout history. And, if we've got other practitioners joining in, what does that do? That's harming us. It's harming all of us. So
yeah, that's scary, because people can't forget the Salem witch trials.
Exactly. And it's not only that. I mean, this is something that occurred all over Europe too. Burnings. I mean.
A lot of people that were innocent too, that weren't even doing anything, and a lot of blame, a lot of things where people put this false blame on people. I from what I heard, it was a lot of false blame. Like, people would be mad at someone, so they would accuse their neighbor of witchcraft. You know what I mean? Because that person slept with their husband or something like that. You know what I mean? Like some weird shit.
Somebody's jealous of the beautiful woman in the community, because their husbands are looking at this, woman. And so their wives will say that person is a witch just to get rid of them. Yeah. Those things have happened.
That's scary.
It is.
Wow.
It is. People will commit murder off of envy, jealousy, and fear mongering, and it's got to stop.
Yeah. Well, this was a powerful interview. That I was going to say thank you so much. This ended up being a great interview. I thought this went really well, and yeah. And do you want to tell people how they can contact you and any services you want to promote? And thank you. This was great.
Just tell them my website again. I don't have it in front of me.
I have it right here.
There you go. If you go to my website, although it needs to be updated, it's been a while. All of my services are on there, and how to contact me through email, and where I am on social media. So you can sign up for my emails, and you can also send me a message if you're interested in any of my services through that website.
And you have a YouTube channel too called At Eye of the Witch, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, but you know what? I never did anything to make it. It's like I set it up and I never gave it any energy and did nothing about it. So it's really defunct. So
yeah, just the website then. Okay, well, yeah.
And my Facebook, you can find me on Facebook. I do meet a lot of people through there, and then get messages through there.
That's cool.
So my Facebook.
Yeah, and
Rahjeena Drabarni.
Yeah, I love that name. Is that a Romani name? Is that what?
Drabarni is actually a Romani word, which means wise woman, healer, and witch. Shivani is also means witch, but Drabarni is like the witch of the tribe, the one of the family in the family that does stuff for the family. So
wow. Yeah, I might come to you honestly, because like I have some questions that I need answered. So like, yeah, I'll contact you privately. Yeah, and thank you so much, and yeah, and thank you, and everybody have a good night. And tomorrow I have another show for you guys. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. And thank you, Rahjeena, and
you're
thank
welcome.
you, everyone. And